Good afternoon. It's 6 o'clock. This is the city charter. We are live now. This is the Charter Review Committee. So we are happy to welcome everyone. We have some folks joining us today here. So we also have some folks joining us virtually. So I will go ahead and have roll call. I don't have my roll call sheet in front of me, but we'll go with can you grab me my roll call? Thank you. I hope everyone had a great 2 weeks. Everyone voted, it seems like. It's been a very high-spirited season. Do we have it?
No, you can just write down.
Yeah, so let's do this. So for roll call, we have present, I'll take numbers, name. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Myself, Judith Garcia, present. Leo Robinson.
Yeah.
Calvin Brown.
Here.
Melinda Vega Maldonado. Melinda Vega. Todd Taylor.
I'm here.
Rosemary Carsley. Caroline. I always get it wrong.
I know, you get me wrong all the time.
Yesenia Alfaro. Absent. Terry Wilson.
He's on his way.
He's on his way?
Yeah.
He's...
That looks nice.
Okay. Alex Barcalcel. Mary Burke.
Present.
Jason Stalker. Charlene McLean.
Present.
Miriam Racantor. Great. Thank you very much. We have a quorum. So now we move on to a quick review of purpose and process for anyone who is joining us on Facebook or on Comcast. The purpose of this City Charter Review Committee is specifically to review the City Charter, which is the most important legal document of our city. And what we do is every week we read a different section. As of today, we're in section 7. And we have a productive discussion on it. Any member of this group and this committee can submit suggestions of changes they wish to see applied in writing a week prior to our meeting. So we are here to simply make suggestions that we will later on present as a full package to the City Council. So that being said, that's the quick review of purpose and process. We continue reading each section. We're in section 7, you're live. And now we move on to the next section, which is any lingering questions, comments from previous sections. So does anyone have any lingering comments? This is the English. Does anybody else have any comments, lingering questions? I see Charlene.
Thank you. I'm sorry I missed the last discussion over section 6 because I do have a couple of questions about some of the items in there, specifically in section 6.3, Traffic and Parking Commission. This may have been covered at the last meeting. It says that the commission shall consist of the police chief, fire chief, director of public works, and the director of community development. Do we have such a role, somebody in that role currently? And if we, who is that person?
No.
Director of
Alex Train.
Alex Train.
Oh, so that maybe we need to think about. Is his title or one of his titles then director of community development? Because
his title is, and it's brand new, director of housing and community development.
Okay, that should be updated then to reflect the change in his title. And then that's it. That's my only question on section 6.
That's a great point. And you know what? Actually, now that you, if I could speak from the chair, now that you bring this up, I also think that we should change the fact that we
Melinda
have,
Vega
you said
Maldonado
section 3,
has joined the meeting.
we mentioned the police chief and the fire chief, and I've noticed personally from attending these meetings that they are usually not there, and they usually appoint someone from their department that they trust to be a part of this commission, which makes sense to me. I understand that both chiefs are busy, and it might be a commission that is difficult to attend at times, given their titles. So another wise decision would be to appoint someone from each department, as opposed to claim that the fire chief and the police chief is going to be there when they're actually not going to be there. I don't recall the last time I saw Chief Kais or Chief Albanese at any of these meetings.
Because
So that being said, I would propose that, to change that, to instead of having them, have them appoint someone from each department. I have two people. I saw Todd Taylor first, and then I'll go to Calvin Brown. Todd Taylor, please.
So, I mean, it says, right in that, or their designees. So, I mean, I think that pretty much covers it. You don't need to really change anything because it says, or their designees, which is what they do. And that's the reason why it's like that.
Sure.
And they do designate somebody to actually sit.
That's what I said. That's exactly what I just said. I said that they designate someone,
Yeah.
but that they appear here as they should be a part, it should consist of the fire chief and the police chief, but I don't recall seeing them there. So that's exactly what I meant. They designate someone. So it might be wise to change that. And if we know that the chiefs are not going to attend, then just make that clear in writing and say, they can designate someone. It's not, it's not brain surgery to designate someone if they're not going to be attending. Calvin first, and then I'll go to Jason. Calvin.
So that's exactly what I was gonna say, because all the years that I've been here, it's always been their designee, and it's here. I think if we look at this, and we should give it some consideration, then we can actually reorganize it, where we can actually have someone that it wouldn't have to be all of three heads, because you're asking the police chief, the police, fire chief, and the director of DPW, and community planning, community development, new Alex Farron position. We may want to just consider just revamping this and just have them left, but from the same area. Someone from the fire, police, without having to be the chief.
Mm-hmm. So you agree with the having them designate? Okay, Jason.
So I don't think you need to go to that level. As Todd pointed out, it says or designee. So I think you should leave the authority with the chiefs to decide who they want to go if they don't want to. I think generally saying a member of the fire department or the police department, then you run into issues on who is that they that picks who that person is. I think this is clearly states that both of those chiefs have the authority, or even the housing and development guy, to pick whoever they want to go in their place. I think we're thinking too much into this. It clearly gives the freedom for all three of those divisions to send whoever they want.
Okay, that's a good point. Yeah, great point. Cool. Yeah. I didn't think about it that way. Go ahead.
My only argument is that if we want to change something, and if we want to have a specific person there every meeting, and not just at any given time the police chief decide who wants to go, this is an opportunity to do it. If we hey, by the way, you can have your designee this week, you can send the sergeant, next week you can send the captain, or next month you can send the captain. We can stay with that. But since we're discussing it, we should consider looking at that also. If you want to say, hey, by the way, we want to be consistent. If you're going to send someone, it has to be someone of rank, it has to be someone of file, and not just any one of your designees. That's if you want to look at changing it. It was brought up.
Okay, good suggestions. Go ahead, Leo.
Well, the police chief usually sends somebody who actually works in the traffic department as his designee.
Yeah,
All right, and Alex Train usually goes himself to represent on the traffic commission.
okay, great. So anyone else have any comments regarding this specific section 6.3? Okay, great. So we move on. Anything else that's lingering from sections 1 through 6 that anybody else wants to go back to? No, we're all good? Okay, so that portion of the meeting is closed. Now I'll open it to public speaking portion. For the public speaking, sorry, this is my phone being weird. For the public speaking portion, we have Councilor Giovanni Recupero here who would like to make some statements. So Councilor Giovanni Recupero, you have the floor. If you can please come this way so the public can see you. So I can give you one. Do you want one?
I need one, but not in Spanish.
Yeah, of course, I know.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm speaking not as a city councilor, I'm speaking as a citizen. And on this section 6, part B, power of duties. This word shouldn't be here. She'll have exclusive authority. To me, that means absolute power.
Sorry,
Absolute power.
Can you go back to what section?
Judith, Councilor Garcia,
6-2.
Part B.
1 second.
can he come closer to the microphone?
Can you go over there?
Come over here.
You come over here and I'll go over here.
Okay, there's the mic.
I normally talk loud, so. All right. This part here, it says she'll have exclusive authority. The word exclusive authority means absolute power. I believe that should be taken out, and the city council should have a say, because the city council, people come to councilors and ask them to do certain things within the street, and they cannot do it because the parking commission can tell them no. But at the end, the city council is the one that determines what the parking commission does, because we have to vote on it, yes or no. So it should be that the city council themselves will decide later on if whatever one council said is good or not, because they do it anyways. The parking commission has to come to us at the end for us to approve what we have to do. Yes, they do. They have to come to us to approve it. They submit it and we have to approve it. If we don't approve it, it doesn't go in effect. That's how it works. So why should the city council, which is a representative of the people, should tell them, this is what I want to do? They can reject it at any time they want to, and you have to wait 90 days to resubmit it. So if with the city council is the body that at the end determines yes or no, why shouldn't they vote themselves to say, okay, this is what we would like to do. And if we would like to do it, I'm going to put it in, and then the council themselves can reject it or take it, just like they do. It shouldn't be that this body itself is an exclusive one. They could do it just for themselves. It shouldn't be that they have absolute power, because at the final say, the city council has it. They're the ones that determine yes or no. The city council determines at the end if we adopt it or we don't adopt it, because it comes up in front of us, and if we reject what they say, so it doesn't make any sense that a city councilor cannot tell them, ask them to put some type of an order, and they can say, no, we don't want you to do it. Why? Nobody should have absolute power. Absolute power is bad.
That's not really what it's saying. It says that means you have reserved part.
No, that means, I've been through it, Mr. Calvin. I put something in.
Yeah,
So what it tells you is you can't tell them what to do. They have exclusive rights.
Reserved power with the government. So like you said, that they put something in, they don't want something, it eventually comes to the city council, we can vote yes.
But you cannot ask them. You can't tell them. You can't say to them, this is what I want. If they say no, it doesn't matter what you want as an elected official, you cannot do it.
Okay, so,
That's what it is. So,
I'm not gonna open this to a discussion. I'll let you continue your statement, and then once you're done with your statement, we'll open it for a discussion.
what? So when,
So what else would you like to comment on? So for now, what I'm hearing is you want to change the word that says exclusive power.
what I would like to comment is to get rid of this word. She'll have exclusive authority.
Okay,
That should be stricken out.
okay,
Because at the final say, the city council says if they adopt it or not. So why can't the city council itself put something in, and at the final say, the councilor can strike them out? If they don't like what one councilor does, they could get rid of it, just like we do now. The only difference is that I would like to see that we, the council, can put something, and they can't say you can't do it. Because they can't do it. Right now, you put something in and they tell you you cannot do it. So you're an elected official, and someone comes to you, and you say, because it happened to my district already, I know how it feels. And you ask them, can you please do this for me? They'll turn around and say, nope, and you can't say anything. They have to think of the other person. Like I put in for a section, and they told me, this is what I'm gonna say, then I'll stop. I put in for a section in a street, which is one way. People live on the other side and people live here, right? So they said you can't do it. The reason they gave me was, oh, well, we can't do it because the fire truck came past here. But yet, the same 4 streets are the same size, the same width, with the same thing. On 3 streets you can turn. Just that one you cannot. But all the people that live in that block have to go all the way down the street to get to their house. So how can one street be this small and the other one cannot be the same? If they're all the same size, a fire truck, from what I understand, can go to anything. So there was a reason that they didn't want to do it. They didn't care about the people that lived on the other side. They have to go all the way down the street during the winter to get to their house. And at the final outcome of all of it is a simple thing. The city council determines, more or less, if they approve it, yes or no. So why can't we ourselves put something in and we determine if it's good or not? We should have the choice. We should be denied by them. By getting rid of this word, it gives you the power to do so.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for your statement. And again, this was the public speaking portion. I do not have anyone else here in the public speaking portion list, so we will move on to any comments. Does anybody have any lingering comments about anything? Councilor Todd Taylor.
So, in general, I'm inclined not to change anything unless there's a good reason to change something. But I think Councilor Recupero brings up an interesting point as far as it doesn't seem to me, and if Cheryl wants to chime in on this, I'd like to hear her opinion when I'm done. It doesn't seem to me that any board or commission should necessarily have the power to supersede the city council's will on something. Yet that is kind of how it is. It seems to me, where we can kind of have a veto, but then we're left in some sort of no man's land of, okay, well, then we have to wait another 30 days and go before and it just seems like there should be a better way to do this than the way it's set up. And so Councilor Recupero at least has a point about that exclusive authority, may not be such a great idea. I'm not saying that I don't want to see the city council necessarily have to make all the decisions for everything. I actually believe in the independent nature of the boards. Being a member of one of those boards at one time, so I appreciate that. And I think it spreads out the power, which is also a healthy thing for municipal government. But Cheryl, is there a way that to kind of resolve this kind of no man's land, if the traffic commission decides it's want to do something and the city council vetoes it and then it goes back, I mean, it just.
So it's kind of interesting, Todd. You have the right as residents, as city councilors, to present your petition, as Councilor Recupero did. Then you have independent people who have expertise in traffic and parking reviewing it. And they don't send to the council what they think is not good for the city. They look at the overall city. It's not just about those neighbors who walk to that area. It's about all the other streets and how they interact. So when an individual council says they don't do what I want, there's a reason why they took that power away from the city councilors, because we can't willy-nilly do what 11 different people want for their specific district when we're an entire city.
Yeah,
but as you know,
that's not really my question, though.
So what we did was to check the power of the traffic and parking when they redid this. Mind you, the residents of Chelsea, the corruption was so bad, we took a lot of power away. For example, you have no authority over the licensing commission. But the licensing commission and the traffic and parking commission really respect the city councilors when they come to represent their district, not necessarily a street here or there, but they really do represent and tend to defer to the city councilors' wishes. Because as you know, a lot of what goes before them do get approved and sent to the city council as to traffic and parking. As to planning, they send you recommendations as to new zoning amendments, and you have the final say there. So you do have a weird balance of power. Once you start to chip away at it, you chip away for the basis of what this form of government is. So once you say the councilors have a right to review their own petitions for traffic and parking without anything else, like without having the city manager's recommendation, which under the law, a lot of it has to be based on his recommendation, because to change a stop sign or to change the way a fire department flows affects a lot of issues. The word exclusive is just that it's kind of weird. He's upset that it says exclusive and they have ultimate power, but they don't, because the city council has the final say.
Right.
So it really wasn't making sense what he was saying.
I understand, but that's not really my
Everyone,
question,
I need
Cheryl.
a bit of control here. So I'm gonna go back and take a little bit of control. There are no side conversations. Giovanni, there are no side comments. We're having a discussion. We gave you the opportunity to speak during the public speaking portion. So now the committee is reviewing what you said. Now, that being said, I will give the floor to Mary Burke. Giovanni, please.
So I had some very points of clarification in the process. So Cheryl, can you just, in a very quick synopsis, walk us through the process of, a petition being brought forward to the parking commission? If this stops, then what happens? Where does it go from there?
So if you wish to anything as to parking and traffic, putting a meter, getting a handicap, changing a one-way, getting a speed bump, you send in the request to the traffic and parking commission or the parking clerk. That becomes a public hearing. So the public and the people around get notified. So abutters will get notified of that there's going to be a public hearing affecting your neighborhood or your street. Mm-hmm. And then everyone, all residents, not just one counselor, but a counselor also will have the authority to speak at a public hearing. Mm-hmm. And the Traffic and Parking Commission also has every department review the request. Mm-hmm. The fire department drives down there. I mean, the police department, I don't know what their process is, but I know community and planning, they go down there, they look at it and see what's best. They also talk about the cost internally. So then I think even the city manager may put in a request. He has to go through the Traffic and Parking Commission to make changes. So then after a public hearing, there's a vote. Sometimes they continue it for more information like you do. And then it goes to a vote. If it is approved, it goes then to the city council. The city council has 30 days to act to either reject it or accept it. So that's a normal petition. The Traffic and Parking Commission may make temporary rules that don't have for 30 days or 90 days. I forget what the limit is. And it allows them to go forward to make a change to see how it will work. So they do that also, which doesn't need council approval.
if the parking commission votes it down, then is there any recourse for, like another go-round on it?
So a lot of times they can ask for a reconsideration, but you really, they would prefer you to wait so many days in order to bring up the petition again.
90 days.
But the same information is probably not, you've got to bring more evidence.
Okay, Mary, do you have any more questions for Cheryl?
No, I just wanted clarification. I mean, the way it is constructed now from Cheryl's description, I feel there is a good checks and balance system. Yes, you have to wait to bring it up again and bring more evidence, but it's, you know, you're going through a public hearing, you're going through, so I mean, to me, it sounds like it's a process that ensures that we're not doing personal agenda items and pushing those through, so.
Okay, thank you, Mary. I see Councillor Todd Taylor and then Charlene. So I'll go Todd Taylor, then Charlene. Go ahead, Councillor Todd Taylor, and then you go on.
So my question was not Councillor Recupero's question.
Oh,
so
okay.
you answered Councillor Recupero's question, but not mine.
Okay.
My question is about the actual when something is passed or not passed by the traffic commission and it comes before the council, and the council then denies what the commission did and sends it back. It's like a game of ping pong. Okay, so it keeps going back and forth. My point is there any way to solve that particular kind of conundrum? And so I'm not sure that even if, and your points are all well taken, and I agree with them as far as the problems that existed in the past, and I'm all for the experts being involved in making decisions. That being said, theoretically, it is still not clear to me that even a group of experts should have the exclusive authority over the collective will of the council, not a councilor here and there or whatever, okay? As we all know, whether we've been on the council or not, there's 11 people there with 11 different things. And so my point is that if you have 8 councilors, right, that you know, vote to, or whatever the number could be, that theoretically the elected, the council's the elected will of the people, and so getting 8 councilors is very difficult. Okay, I mean, so I guess what I'm throwing out there is, you know, maybe some sort of supermajority of the council kind of end it. And now, I'm not sure that that's a good idea. I'm not necessarily saying this is what we should do. I'm saying this is what we ought to think about. And because there is a problem with this kind of ping pong issue of it going back and forth from the council to the commission, to the council to the commission, and then, you know, it's a you know, it's a never-ending loop.
So I have to be honest with you, with traffic, the one ping pong issue is what to do with the Broadway corridor. But it's a really good exercise, Counselor, because you force them to rethink what they want to do, because you're saying the residents don't want it. So if there's a final say, what is the final say on that? Because the councilors didn't come up with a better idea collectively, right? 8 of them didn't come up with a better idea. Or
I'm not saying that we have to come up with a perfect system that's going to solve every issue. If we could do that.
I know, but I'm just trying to.
The money, huh?
I know, but I'm trying to say to you is that we've not really ping-ponged. Ping-ponged. This is not, I mean, just because one council is not happy with a decision and wants to go back, there's no ping-pong there.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say to you is it works because you did what you were supposed to do as councilors. You didn't like the downtown corridor, the first plan, and I don't even think you liked the second plan, right? So I'm just saying is that you push back, and that's the power you have, is that this is all great and dandy and you spent 3 years on it, but it's not going to work for our residents. So that was a perfect thing for the city to do.
So I would say to that in a, in a kind of a realistic way, that if we're not really having this problem, then the theoretical stuff really doesn't matter. It's our job to kind of review this.
Yeah, it is. It's a good thing. Yeah.
This is my comment about this particular thing, that the traffic commission or the licensing board or any of these other, I've always supported their independence. I don't want them to come under the thumb of the city council. And it's something to think about. And I think the rest of the members, by the time we come back around and have to take a vote on all these things, you might want to think about those issues. That's all.
Great, thank you, Councilor Taylor. So now I see Charlene, and then I'll take it to Councilor Robinson. So Charlene, you have the floor. You're all set? Okay, great. Councilor Robinson.
I think what some of the confusion is when we get a report from the traffic commission, I think the council thinks as a whole that we have to approve the letter in which they sent. So if there are 10 items that come over and I'm against the 5th item, then it's my job to lobby my colleagues to be on board with me to be able to turn it down and send it back to the traffic commission. And that's how it works, and that's how you get a little balance.
And going back to Councilor Robinson's point, I mean, in my tenure here as a councilwoman, it has happened where one particular councilor is not in favor of one particular measure, and you can pull it out and say, let's vote for everything except this one item. So yeah, agree with your point. Are there any other comments from this specific committee? This is only committee members. Public speaking portion is already closed. Any other comment? Jason?
So I guess thinking through what everyone has said, is the word exclusive authority in there even make any sense? Because it doesn't seem like they actually have exclusive authority, right? Because it actually is going to city council to approve. So while it's different than what Mr. Akupro said, I don't even think that we're giving them the power that the charter says that they have.
Good point. That's a great point. So do we think the word should be what instead? Should it be authority? Should it be, what should that be? Charlene?
Yeah, I would just strike the word exclusive, that they shall have authority except as otherwise provided by the charter. I think that would cover what their obligations and rights are to promulgate laws, suggestions, rules, etc. Just delete the word exclusive.
So then strike out exclusive and leave authority so it can reflect the actual power they have. Right?
Right. They have authority, and then everything else in there says they're governed by various general laws, which makes sense. And I'm sure that if they deny something to be, we want this road to be 2 ways, they'll deny it and say it's not wide enough based on XYZ general law that I'm sure is coming from the state. So they're governed by another, I'll use power or legislation, right? That's greater than the city. And so, yeah.
Okay.
I agree with Charlene. That's fine.
Okay, so strike out exclusive and leave as authority.
I do have issues with that, but yeah.
So,
I have a question for Cheryl.
So Cheryl, before you speak, I'm going to let Councilor Brown ask his question, and then you can respond and answer the question. Go ahead, Councilor Brown.
So those 2 words go actually together for a purpose. And my question for Cheryl is, by taking a word, the first part of it out, what do you do with that sentence now? Because it's not complete. But my understanding is that word exclusive gives you some reserve for the council members and also for collaboration going back with it.
So if you take out this word exclusive authority, and say to adopt, amend, alter, and repeal rules. Then are you opening it up for someone else to adopt, to amend, alter, and repeal rules or regulations? Yes. And that's why it says exclusive authority, is because the city council or the city manager or 10 residents, there's other ways to adopt rules and amend. But as the traffic and parking, once you take out exclusive authority, you affect it. So this is why I would say you really have to consider, they do have the exclusive authority to do so.
Okay, so
Because they
just
repeal their own rules and regulations also.
Charlene, I see you have a question.
So Cheryl, if I'm understanding you, what you're saying is simply saying they shall have authority. Does it would open that up?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's why the counselor is before you, is he wants that open up.
Calvin, do you have anything else? And then I'll go to Mary.
Yeah, just quickly, I think the word exclusively also brings in the regulations that we still have to abide by. It takes that away from us, and it allows us to come in whatever defined measures or whatever ways we want to try to scrutinize this, whatever we're trying to do. I think it worked, the way it is. So I think, as Councilor Taylor said a moment ago, if it's just to look and review at it, we reviewed it, we looked at it, and it worked. It gives us checks, it gives us balance, and again, it does give us an avenue if we really want to go and feel that this handicap sign needs to be there. We need to have something to really indicate this person is, fit the description of whatever defines handicap. And then we'll bring that to the commission, we'll bring the other evidence to the commission, and we'll work with it. Taking the word exclusive out allows you to weaken this whole sentence.
Okay. Taking the word, so you're against taking it out? Okay.
The word exclusive.
Taking out the word exclusive. Okay. Anyone, Mary, you also had. Go ahead.
No, actually, I was going to say something very similar to what Calvin. So I support what Calvin said. I think the other thing too is that again I go back to what I've heard earlier from Councilor Taylor, from Cheryl. There's only been a few cases in the last couple of years where something has gone back and forth, but overall it has worked, and it's worked ethically, and the tension between the bodies is a healthy tension in government that should be there so that things do work ethically on behalf of residents. So I would say let's leave this alone.
I want to speak.
Yeah, go ahead, Rosemary.
I'm going along with Mary and Calvin because I don't see a problem with this word. I mean, you need to have some kind of authority to make sure everything goes smoothly. Just leave it the way it is. There's no problem.
Okay, great. So it seems that everyone has been swayed that it should remain as is. Great. So majority, I should say majority. I know that not everyone has been swayed. So great. So anyone else, any comments regarding this or anything else lingering? Great, so now we'll move on. We'll close that portion of the meeting and we will move on to the good stuff, section 7. So I know everyone had 2 weeks to read section 7. It was a short one, so anyone, I didn't receive any recommendations or suggestions from anyone to make any changes, so is everyone okay with section 7? And for anyone watching at home, section 7 discusses the election and the process of candidates running for office.
Nomination process.
The nomination process, and what are the requirements that they have to submit in order to be able to run for office. So Charlene, I see your hands up, and Jason. So I'll go Charlene and then Jason. Go ahead, Charlene.
I have a question for Cheryl. Regarding, I'm looking at section 7.4 regarding districts. What would trigger a review and a redrawing of voting districts within the city of Chelsea.
The census is one main way that triggers it, and that's where the Commonwealth would, and the Department of Justice, if we have a percent increase of residents, that would automatically trigger it. Sometimes a lawsuit. In the past, we did it because the Department of Justice found that our school districts needed to be more representative. So there's different ways to trigger it. Maybe the city council could also, I believe, Leo, this may have happened, vote to redistrict. I know you have to vote to accept the district lines, but those are the reasons why you can change the district.
Okay, so, but the city council could, outside of the census or a lawsuit, the city council could theoretically call for a redrawing of, I'm thinking more particularly of the city council districts.
Okay, so for example, we've had a lot of housing development. So that may increase the amount of residents in different type of districts, because a lot of the development has been happening outside of, for example, the downtown district. And for example, by the high school, there's going to be a lot more residents, which is District 8, I believe. By the over there on Spencer Ave, we've had quite a few developments, and down by the Broadway, Upper Broadway, and near Revere. So I'm just saying is that sometimes the city manager or the city council would consider redistricting. But the census is how you base how many residents live in a particular district. So that's why we push the district. We push, please, please, please fill out your census.
That's a great call. So for everyone watching.
Yeah. Thank you, Cheryl.
Yeah.
The first is just
okay,
a quick.
Jason, go ahead.
The first, I think, is a typo in 72C. It says office whose names may be printed in the official ballot. Should that be on the official ballot?
Good point.
Yeah.
Can you mark that? I have the Spanish charter in front of me. So I can't. It should say on.
Yeah.
On ballot.
INON now.
Woo.
And then didn't Roy, I think in the beginning, did Roy submit comments to us that would pertain to this section in regards to changing the election day?
Yes,
He did.
right.
He did. He wanted to mirror the city elections. Yeah, he wanted one to maybe go Saturday, and two, maybe have the city election, the local election, the same year as the federal elections for president.
Okay.
So Saturday's interesting. He had me look into it. Some towns do that. City doesn't do it because it's overtime cost, but it's something.
I think that his reasoning, and again, he's not here, so I can't really speak on his behalf, but the reasoning I've heard from people who share his point of view is that it's a matter of access, and Saturday seems to be a good day for people. You know, voter turnout tends to be pretty low overall, especially for municipal elections. And having it on a Saturday where there is not necessarily, I understand some people work over the weekends, but not everyone works over the weekends. It just makes it easier. And I see your point, Cheryl, of it might be more of a cost for a city in terms of overtime expense, but in terms of residents, it might be a more viable option in terms of being able to go out to the polls on a Saturday. So
it's a little difficult this year with COVID because your kids running around and coming with you on a Saturday to elect may be a little difficult, but general.
But hopefully by then we'll have a vaccine and we won't have to wear these masks and things will be back to normal. Hopefully by then. I see Todd Taylor, and then I'll go back to Councilor Brown. So Councilor Todd Taylor.
So there's one pretty obvious problem with Saturday voting. And that is that there are religious groups who keep Saturday as the Sabbath, Jews, Seventh-day Adventists, And I think that is kind of a, that would not be a good move to move it to Saturday. And I think you're going to have legal challenges to that if that's the way you want to go. And I think it's kind of like, a few years ago, we inadvertently held elections on the Jewish high holidays, and that caused a fair bit of consternation, if some of you remember. So while I understand we want to get more people involved in participating, and I do too, I'm not sure that that's the way to go about it. And I think that there would be problems with doing that.
No? Okay. So, Charlene.
We have to be inclusive.
Okay. So I'll have Charlene and then Jason. Charlene, go ahead.
I don't know if this is something we can realistically look altering now, because I think there are cost considerations that need to be explored. I do agree greater access needs to be provided to encourage the largest number of people to vote. Having a Saturday option would definitely facilitate that, but to Todd's point, we need to be very mindful about, by trying to accommodate one group of people by having voting on a Saturday, we're not then going to prevent others from participating. One option, in most European countries, it's not a one-day event. It can be 2 or 3 days, again, to ensure people have the greatest access possible. So, something to think about. Do we have, for municipal elections, do we have, do we have a Saturday and a Tuesday? Or, it would delay, the official reporting, but, you could get more people to come out and vote in municipal elections. Of course, there's a cost associated with that, by having it on, having to staff up on a Saturday and then to do it again on, a weekday. It's something to think about. Also, are we going to formalize or, permanently have voting by mail? Or is this just a COVID event? Because I think, having the option to vote by mail will hopefully encourage more people to participate, because you don't have to carve out the time from your schedule. So like I said, these are all things to think about. And it's also why I don't think changing the date for voting is something it might not be something we can do during this process. It might be something that the city council will have to take up at a later date. And that's all I have to say on the subject. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlene. Jason, the floor is yours. Is anybody here?
To go a little off of what Charlene was saying, I guess kind of a question, and I'm sure I don't know if we have the data to answer generally, is with the early voting that happened in the primaries, do we see correlation to increased voters, or are people just the same amount of people are voting, but just on different days, and they're not all, shoehorned into the same day? And so if you have early voting and you allow people that whole week leading up to the Tuesday election, then I think hopefully we've helped mitigate the Saturday issues.
Cheryl, the floor is yours.
So this was the second election period that we did early voting, where you could vote in City Hall early. With the early voting and the mail-in ballots, and we had quite a few mail-in ballots, more people did, I believe, vote in the primary, which we don't normally have. And plus we had a local representative running in a state election, so we had more people vote. I think you might see more people vote by mail because it worked. We didn't really have complaints in Chelsea about the mail-in ballots. And we had not just the regular put it in the mail, you could bring your ballot to City Hall or put it in the green box out front. So you could vote on your own time if you requested to do so.
Right. Thank you. Is there anyone else? Any other questions? Councilor Robinson.
I think when the census comes in, I think that we're probably gonna really have to take a look at how we redo the districts. And I personally go back to the number of 4 at-large and 5 wards. And I think that we got more people coming out and participating than we do right now at this time. And that's a proposal that I will continue to push on the council.
Great. So you're pushing for 9 members total?
Yes.
9 members, councilors, Councilor Robinson, Councilor Brown,
Yeah.
sorry.
So I just wanted to add, because we had some fruitful conversation regarding voting. One way we could do it, if you really wanted to try to get more engagement and more participation, is you can actually have voting on the same day, which is a Tuesday, but you can have early voting where you can actually mail it in and receive it 3 or 4 days prior to the election. It's almost like absentee ballot. People still have the right to absentee balloting with early voting, not a location, but the same thing, where you just mail your ballot in early. A lot of folks have seen a lot of good work out of that. I mean, it's a lot of work for the town, and in this case, for our city, it would be a lot of work because you're getting ballots coming in every day, you have to check the boxes out front. But you don't have to have a 2-day election, you don't have to move an election, you just have more time to vote by mail, which is called early, not going into 2 or 3 different polling locations, just one on election day, where you can just vote by mail and card. It's pretty much early voting.
Great. Mary, I see you.
So once again, I would echo Calvin and say definitely the voting by mail, I think was wonderful. I mean, it was great. Not having to, make time after work and go to the polls and things on that nature. It was very convenient. And I think, and I would say, and I have been on the record, and I wrote it earlier in this process, I would be against, Councilor Robinson, reducing the number of counselors. I don't think that reducing the number of counselors is going to increase votes or the number of people voting, or decreasing the counselors to increase. I think it's 2 separate issues. And I think that, and I've stated it before, I think that would, by decreasing the number of counselors, you're actually giving those counselors more power over the entire democratic process. I would be against that.
Yeah, I agree with Mary, because I think that we cannot, representation and participation are 2 different subjects. And the reason why we have a higher number of counselors is because we want higher representation in our government, and having less number of counselors or more is not necessarily going to impact the participation level of your voters. So I agree as well on that issue. However, we have plenty of time. I mean, we can continue discussing it today.
Just to set the record straight, okay?
No one's right or wrong.
No,
This is your opinion.
I'm gonna tell you why it ended up 11 counselors.
Go ahead.
Okay, it was gerrymandered because the counselors who were presently serving on the council had control over the redistricting. So they didn't want me to run against Henry because we're in the same ward. So that's how they gerrymandered it, split up to make sure there was enough voters in the different districts. So that's how we ended up with 11 districts.
Great,
all right?
Great. So that's a great historical fact.
Yeah, so, right, so if I represented Ward 3, all right, it was a pretty large district. So now, because we went to 11 councils, we chopped it up and split it up to where, we lost a lot of people who would normally come out and vote. My own personal opinion.
Right. Yeah. Well, everyone's personal opinion is welcomed here. Councilor Taylor.
So I would just say, that if we're concerned about the power being in too few hands, you know, maybe we ought to increase the number of counselors to say 15, in order to make sure that not one person has, you know, all this. I mean, for me, one of the reasons why we have low participation is because we have no mayor. And the mayor's race brings out participation. But we had problems with our mayors, and so, you know, this is why we can't have nice things. But my whole point is you can't have everything, and I think that one of the advantages that Councilor Robinson and I agree on is that by reducing the number of people, it's easier, I think, to really bore down into the issues and problems that face the city. And I think that if there are less counselors, then there's more of an interest in who those spots go to, therefore, you know, propelling more participation in this process. I mean, some of these races, I mean, you know, you don't even need 100 votes to be elected to city council. So, I mean, I think that this is an issue. I mean, this is not a fake issue. This is a real issue, and I'd like to see greater participation too. But I think a lot of that has to come with stuff outside the charter, like how we actually have a public discourse in this city, which I've been complaining about for a long time. So, you know, I think that we ought to consider going back to the wards. These are already established. Leo wants to go back to 5 wards. We have 4 active wards now. I think that that's plenty. So you know, I think that we ought to think about these things and decide what's more important. You know, concern that power is in the hands of too few, or greater participation in the process. So.
Right, so I will go to Councilor Brown first, and then I'll let Cheryl make any comments. Go ahead.
So, you know, it's easy to talk about this, but it's very hard to get it done. If you look at the wards right now, with all the housing being developed and folks are moving in, you have one ward right now that may have 8,000 people in it, right now. You have the average ward, and you can look at your back of your book, your registration book, it's in the city clerk. The average ward 10 years ago was numbered 24 to 2,500 persons per precinct, and you get a total, you make up the 12,000 voters in the city, but you make up the 42,000 voters in the city. So it has nothing really to do with wards, because you have a lot of work you have to do. And if you try that method, what you're talking about, you're gonna discriminate against people. And that's where we try to get away from. And it's a lot of work. It's not an easy fix. I mean, what we have right now, whether it's 9 councils, 11 councils, 15 councils, that's where we are, and that's been working since I've been a city councilor. And I've been a city councilor, I can say, for 16 years. I'm sorry? Oh. So I just wanted to say that it's a lot of work.
Cheryl.
So you were thinking about more participation in the process and who's representing, you know, you get elected by, I believe in the school committee, someone got elected by 1 or 2 votes one year. But so in section 7 dash, I believe it's like 7-2, the second under A, you could increase the requirements for the signature. Get more participation that way by the public. Have 200 people sign your petition to run. I mean, 50 people, that's your relatives. It just should be maybe different for citywide and different for districts. So the charter does allow you to increase participation a little differently than and then just 50. I mean, that's crazy. You know, we have more than 50 people in every single district. And citywide, we've got 40,000. You know, we can get more people registered if you have the candidates out there knocking on doors and getting signatures. It's just an option. So your charter does provide for you to be changing, to make minor changes or smaller changes. I know those of you who are elected officials may not want to change that right now, but if you really want participation, that's a way to do it.
Great, Councilor Brown and then Councilor Leo.
I agree. I think in most cities, and I work with the Secretary of State's office, and most cities, it's unheard of. You have towns to run for selectmen, and you need 100 votes, 100 signatures to get on. You got city councilors for district here, you need 50 to get on. You got city councilors at large, you need 50. What's the energy? There's no energy, there's no participation. You get the same 50 signatures every year. It should be 300 signatures for at-large councilor and 150. I believe, if I could just ask councilor, what was it before?
It was 150 signatures, and the reason that it changed, we got sued by.
I know, that's why we got sued.
By the Latino community,
Yeah.
because they felt they couldn't be represented, and that's why we went to 50 signatures.
Well, I think we got sued by the federal government down in Washington DC, and we came back with what we thought was fair. They didn't put numbers on us. So that's how you get participation. I don't think the mayor makes it different. So it's ways we can do it.
Great, so Councilor Robinson.
No, I just said.
She just said.
Okay, got it. So, Mary.
No.
So I would also, Godfrey, I'm sorry, but I'm actually agreeing with you again. I think it should, I think we should have more, especially with all the development in Chelsea and all of the people moving in. This is the time to increase the requirement of the signatures, right? And it gets our city leaders out there knocking on the doors in some of these developments, like One North, and Lord knows, I don't know what they're calling that monolith next to Chelsea High, but yeah. So no, I agree. And Calvin, yeah, we're right on the same page tonight.
Okay, great. So I'm glad, it happens. Some nights we agree with each other. So what I'm hearing is we might be considering changing the number of signatures for elected officials. Is that what I'm hearing from some folks? I have some nods, some yeses, some no's.
I don't want to.
So I'll let you guys sleep on it. Think about it. I know some elected officials are not gonna like that because some people just don't wanna get more signatures. It will happen, so.
Do it anyway.
Yeah.
Do it anyway. Every time you run, you get more than 50 signatures. Because some get knocked out.
Exactly. So great, excellent point.
Yeah.
So it's not a huge lift.
No, you do
So it's not a huge lift.
80 signatures.
Exactly. So if this is something that wants to be presented officially as a suggestion, Rosemary, you have a comment?
No.
Oh, I thought you.
No.
Great. So yeah, sleep on it, think about it. It might be a number that we might want to increase 100, 200, 300. Let me know.
Be the same for both city council and school committee, or are you gonna have separate?
Whatever you want, you tell me. Do you think it should be separate?
I think it should be the same.
You think it should be the same?
Yeah, if we agree on a number, it should be the same. I don't think it should be more than the other.
Okay.
You all represent the same constituents, so.
Yeah, except some are districts and some are at large. Okay, so we might want to increase it and keep it the same for both. I see Councilor Todd Taylor, go ahead.
So just for, to put a scale on things here, I mean, the state requirement for state rep is 150 signatures in a state rep district. So, let's not go crazy with 300 or 500. I mean, I actually think that would increase an incumbent's likelihood to stay in if you increased it. Make it harder for the guy who wants the new guy. But I think if you wanted to increase it to 100, that's fair. I mean, at least you could get. You'd have to get more people to sign your papers than end up voting for you in the general election. So, I mean, this is, you know, maybe it's 50 for a reason. I mean, just go back and look at how many votes people are getting in the elections, and you know, maybe that's the reason why it's at 50. I mean,
and I think the other point, which you're raising, a good point, Councilor Brown, Councilor Taylor, sorry, I'm like all over the place today, is what Councilor Robinson just mentioned, which was that a few years back, we had to lower the number of signatures because we got into some situation with the law, right? So whatever that is, you know, whatever that number is, let's make sure that it's a comfortable number. It's a decent number. Charlene, I see you, and I don't know if anyone here has comments. Charlene?
What had the number been before it was reduced to 50? What was the number?
You said
150.
150.
Okay.
You hear that?
So if we find something, okay, higher than 50, but lower than 150, I mean, 100?
Henry
Yeah.
I
said,
mean, that's reasonable.
Henry said 75.
75.
75. I have Rosemary saying 75.
I say 100. I like 100.
No.
Who likes 100? I have 2. Okay. 3. 100. Okay. 75.
Brady Bunch.
75, they should.
No, I'm saying the same.
75. Okay. So I have Councilor Robinson wants to keep it at 50. I have 2 folks 75, and I have 3 that want it at 100. Okay.
How do you feel?
Yeah, what?
I am fine. I always submit 100, 150 just in case, but that's because I'm overly ambitious. But I'm fine with any number that the entire consensus. I'm fine with 100. But that's just me.
In the past couple elections, we've had people who couldn't get it.
Yeah.
Right into
Really?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
School committee and city council.
Yeah, school committee had a couple of people could get it.
Yep.
Yeah. I think 75, just leave it. Or leave 50 or 75, that's my.
Do we know why they were able to get 50?
Lazy.
You gotta work harder. You gotta work for it.
There you go, Henry.
I want chicken or chicken.
Yeah, it's not, yeah, no.
I'm committed.
Okay, well, that's a discussion for another day, but think about it. If anyone feels strongly about it, submit something in writing. Again, we'll be presenting a final package to the council once we're done with reading the entire section, the entire city charter, which we're just weeks away from. We just finished talking about section 7. Anyone else have any comments regarding section 7 that they feel strongly about? No. Okay, so for next week, not next week, the following week, we have section 8, and I also want to take this moment to remind every single member of this committee that you may have received an email from Councilor Melinda Vega inviting you to a meeting on the 23rd. That was a glitch in the system. That is not a correct meeting. We're sticking to schedule. So that is, do not show up on the 23rd.
You're not sure.
Yeah, so you don't have to come in on the 23rd. Read section 8. We will be discussing section 8. And for the public who is watching us now and you have any comments regarding any section, please feel free to submit it by writing to either myself at judithgarcia@chelseama.gov or Fatima, who is our superhero and amazing administrative assistant. Her email is fmelara, MELARA, @chelseama.gov. You can submit it to us, or you can call us at 617-466-4060 and let us know that you will be coming in, and we'll add you to the list for the public speaking portion. So just remember that if you're coming as a guest for public speaking, we will open it, public speaking portion. You can speak. It's not going to be an active discussion with the committee. The committee will have discussions regarding any comments that were said during our discussion portion, but this is not a back and forth with committee members. It's, you speak during your public speaking portion. It's not timed. Go ahead and speak. Share your thoughts and comments, and we try to keep it. My phone is a little crazy. So anyway, that being said, thank you everyone for coming today, and have fun reading section 8. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Bye.